Everyone, please rise. We'll be led in prayer by Alderwoman Berto, please.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all of our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all of our deliberations. Give us the strength and the wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of our community. Amen.
Amen. President Pro Tem, please, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's meeting. Again, we are operating under the guidelines of the emergency orders of the governor at this time. I'd like to declare that citizen comment general is open and invite any callers to call in. Anyone viewing it wants to speak to us about any issue that's important to them involving the city of Norwich, please call in at 860-215-8140, and then when prompted, follow with the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. The lines are open. Again, if you wish to speak to us under general citizen comment, please dial 860-215-8140, and when prompted, follow by the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. It's not. No.
Is there an issue?
Right. I know.
I think it's not on. There's no red light.
Mary, you can speak, but no one else can speak.
Oh,
I don't know if they can hear you at home on your mics.
Uh,
You all seem to be live. John, can you say something? Can he hear the mayor?
John, can you hear my voice?
Can you hear Peter?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is working here. You guys can hear Peter? Can you hear John?
I could.
All right, I'll have to go up there. Okay, sorry about my mic.
So the conflict is not on this end, it's on the city receiving the call coming in?
Correct. This mic doesn't work, and this podium mic, I don't think works.
Well, the light's not on, that's one indicator.
Correct,
That's an indicator, his power's not getting to it.
correct. And the lavalier mic and my mic do not work. So,
What the hell?
I mean, I can come up and sit back from somebody up there if you want.
Do you want her to
Well,
sit
I
right
can
here?
move over there.
This is got an empty mic. And it
Be-
works.
Betsy, why don't you return to your normal chair? Please.
Sorry. So I'm not sure how the public is gonna hear Mr. Eccleston.
How about the lapel mics?
The lapel mic does not work either. I'm thinking you might have enough that we can put it to here maybe for Mr. Eccleston.
Okay.
You can put
That-
your mic down there.
Take Grant's spot.
Okay. Sorry. So I'll tell Marvin we have him on tape. Is that what you want me to do?
You already mentioned that it was being recorded. So you could hear him in here, but it's not translating out here. Is the main control is on, correct?
Yes.
So we do have another caller. It's Ms.
Should-
Philbrook.
Should we turn all these off, reset,
We can.
reboot them?
Kathy, let's reboot. Let's shut everything down and. So. Okay, there it goes. I'm gonna go back.
Oh, now it's on. Okay, all right, excuse me if you're watching or listening, I apologize. We had a little technical difficulties. We had to reboot the system, turn it off, shut it down, then turn it back up. It appears to be working now. If the first caller, Mr. Ceruto, is still online, if not, please know you can call back in, but I understand another caller was reaching us as well. Again, the number is 860-215-8140. conference ID 403-8191, and the pound key.
Hello? Yes, Paul, please say your name.
It's still not picking up.
Joanne Philbrick,
Oh.
Norwich Town, Connecticut. I'm so frustrated now that I don't even know what to say. I'll call back when it's time for the agenda item.
Thank you. Again, the number to call in is 860-215-8140, followed
Good
by...
evening. It's Marvin Cerruto.
Go ahead, sir.
100 Star Street, Norwich, Connecticut, the United States of America, a republic, not a democracy. And I just want to call in. I believe we should be the leaders and the trailblazers, and we should open up City Hall. There's some times where I can't make it to City Hall. Tonight I could have made it in. I would have loved to have come into City Hall and been there with you all. I just believe that this crisis can't go on any longer. We really need to get back to a normal way of life, especially since yesterday was President's Day, and Norwich is the residence of the first President of the United States of America. And people can argue with me about that, but it's a fact that Samuel Huntington was the first President of the United States. And I've done quite a nice outline here, changing subjects. I've done quite a nice outline. I'm looking forward to Columbus Day. I know it's a ways off, but I'm planning ahead because I have a lot of people that want to show their respect for Christopher Columbus, and we're going to do that because for the last 2 years we've been trampled, and unnecessarily trampled, I might add, but we're going to change that. And that's a fact. My name is Marvin Cerruto. I'm a citizen, I'm a veteran, I stand on my own 2 feet, and I thank you for letting me have my say.
Thank you, sir. Again, if you wish to call, the number is 860-215-8140, and when prompted, dial 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, if you wish to call in and the citizen comment general, please dial 860-215-8140, and when prompted, 403-8191 and the pound key. This is our third request. Again, dial 860-215-8140, and when prompted, dial 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, we apologize for any inconvenience that anyone incurred with a technical issue, but at this time, with no other callers, I then declare that citizen comment general to be closed. Thank you.
Proclamation for Mr. David Bishop.
I'm going to read this from my seat for, hopefully it's still working. This proclamation is presented from the city of Norwich to Mr. David Bishop. Whereas the city is only as good as the people that live in it, and Norwich is blessed with so many that give back to her, and David Bishop is such a person. It was where David Bishop has a talent working with his hands and has used that talent to secure sites of Norwich that needed extra attention and be fixed. And whereas David Bishop in 2017 saw a bicentennial historic marker on the Norwich Town Green and saw that it couldn't be read in the condition it was in, he spent many weeks carefully painting the marker, restoring it to new condition. He also painted the Uncas Leap sign and the Benedict Arnold sign, restoring them to their original look. Whereas David Bishop in 2019 was recommended to paint the Buckingham Memorial sign, a wooden sign that is likely a century old, he restored the sign to its original condition and then looked around the Buckingham and restored the porch and other wooden facades. Whereas David Bishop saw a picture of the Norwich Harbor mural established 1659 welcome sign and wanted to bring it back to its original glory. Initially commissioned by Ron Aliano, designed and painted by Nancy Brom Marine, a local artist, and he set to work to fix it. He received permission from Public Works and Police and Genesee Wyoming Railroad. Whereas David Bishop finally had all he needed, and he set about restoring the Norwich Harbor sign, spending over 173 hours painting, and he did a beautiful job. The painting is fully restored. Then he turned his sights to the wake buoy and did another beautiful job. Whereas David Bishop, in the true spirit of volunteerism, recaptured the essence of our harbor welcoming sign. Now therefore, I, Mayor Peter Albert Nystrom, and Norwich City Council President Pro Tem Joseph A. DeLucia, on behalf of the Norwich City Council and the citizens of the city of Norwich, do hereby thank David Bishop and do hereby express our very sincere appreciation for the continuing excellent volunteerism he provides to the community and for the outstanding services he has provided to the Rose of New England, dated this 22nd day of February 2022, signed by myself and our President Pro Tem, Alderman Joe DeLucia. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
I'm just glad I had a chance to do it, and when I see things that need to be fixed up, especially this is my hometown, glad I moved back a few years ago. I'm glad I had a chance to do it, and I'm looking forward to doing some more. I don't know if you folks have seen it, but this is the wake sign that I've been working on. I'm not quite finished with it yet, but I'll leave it if you want to pass it around. It's in the basement of the Buckingham Memorial. That's my workshop now, so I'm working on it there. So thank you very much. This was very nice. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Petitions and communications.
Please, go ahead. Sorry.
An oral report will be given by David Eccleston, the ratepayer representative for Connecticut Municipal Electric Energy Cooperative.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Hope this works with mask and all. First of all, thank you for allowing me to continue as the ratepayer representative for our community. It's an honor, and it's something I really enjoy. Hopefully that comes through tonight. I don't feel like I have as much to tell you this year as I told you last year, but that could be a good thing, and I think it reflects the new CEO there. I say new, he's well into his term. Setting a pace, setting a tone, and going about the business as we want it to be, just matter of fact, without drama. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, let me start by saying that CMEC, their main job is to procure wholesale electricity for us and for 5 other municipalities in Connecticut. And that's where the bulk of the money goes, towards procuring energy and paying for transmission costs. They also do projects, and the projects are designed to lower the rate and provide benefit to all the members of CMEC. They do things like peak shaving, which is important because your transmission costs are set by the independent system operator in New England based on your proportion of the load that you're carrying on the peak day of the year. So anything you can do to keep your load lower lowers your transmission costs. And some of these CMEC projects do exactly that. Other projects produce electricity for a customer that there is profit made from, and that ends up benefiting the members. So they do a number of niche things like that. My job, however, is different. Some people call me a watchdog. The criteria for this job, as you probably well know, is independence. I'm there to provide an independent look representing the ratepayers of Norwich. The expectation is that I'm capable of participating because the CMEC staff expect every board member to be a party to the decisions they make, participate on committees, and do the work of the board of directors. Now, the board of directors is a governing board, so we don't get into managing the day-to-day work. We don't set individual salaries other than the CEO. We set policy. We provide direction on the large decisions. It's a governance role and not a managing role. The one difference between, say, ratepayer representatives and the other members of the board, like Chris LaRose, the heads of the member units get involved in the projects and how much Norwich wants to contribute and invest in the projects. The ratepayers stay out of those decisions. Otherwise, I'm a full-fledged member of the board. I was on 2 committees last year. It was I attended 21 out of 23 scheduled meetings. My employer continues to allow me to balance my obligations to my employer and my obligations to CMEC, so that's been a good thing for me. The committees I was on last year were compensation and personnel policy and the legislative affairs committee. This year, I'm on the audit committee, joint governance, and the budget and finance committee for a second time. I've done a full tour of all the committees now. I've been on there long enough, seen the entire business from that perspective. So the thing that's really important to us, I'm sure, is cost performance. CMEC makes a plan a year in advance, and they track themselves every month over the course of the year, and they share their progress with us on the board so we can see how they're performing to the plan. They compare themselves to a benchmark, which is Eversource. In the past, that would have been Connecticut Light and Power, but today it's Eversource. And the market for energy has been very volatile. I think everybody knows that. This winter, even more volatile than last year. And despite all that, they came, my report says they within 2% of the goal of being under the benchmark. The goal was 29% less than the benchmark. They made 25% despite all the volatility. And I still think that's remarkable, considering that they set the goal a year in advance. And they track to that. Now, they've done that for years. Typically, they range from 25 to 35% less than the benchmark, so they're still hitting their marks for us. And then the niche applications contribute. There are some projects struggling, but CMEC is working on those issues diligently to make them pay for us. So last year when I was here, I pointed out that Wallingford had been part of CMEC, and they left in 2014. They continued to participate in some of the projects, and I thought it was interesting to track their retail electric rates and compare them to ours. Now, there's a big difference going from wholesale to retail. A lot goes into figuring that out, so it's a really kind of a crude membership comparison. But Wallingford, say for your normal home retail rate, tends to be a penny cheaper per kilowatt hour than Norwich Public Utilities, but their monthly fee is $5 more. So Norwich raised rates, and a few months later, Wallingford raised rates, and that difference was restored. They've kind of been tracking with us for years. They've had 7 years to find a different way to procure electricity, and they track us because they've found a good substitute for CMEC, but they have not found a better substitute than CMEC. That's about the only conclusion I can draw from that. But it's a welcome comparison. It's one of the few ways that we can figure out whether we're getting value from CMEC or not, aside from the monthly cost performance that we go through. So I remain satisfied with what CMEC's doing for us based on that and all the other information I have about them. Now, the budget process. 2 years ago, the budget process changed significantly, adding a lot of transparency and a lot of accountability. We could see what was going into the budget in ways that we couldn't before. They've sustained that behavior with the new CEO. The process continues to be robust. It's the most important time of the year because you're looking at what's going into the cost and what's going into the predictions for next year. And you can see whether we're going to have higher rates or not based on all the budgets. Now, last year, I reported that they had made some financial moves to restructure some debt, and they took $1 million out of what we call the non-fuel operating costs, things that, you know, there's energy procurement, and then there's running of the business, managing the projects. And this year, they've taken $1.5 million out of the non-fuel side of the budget. Some of that is personnel loss. 2.5 years ago, there were 35 people working for CMEC, and today it's 26. So 9 people takes a fair amount of money out of the budget. Some of those folks were very senior people who were not let go for performance reasons, and it wasn't attrition. It's their function didn't fit with the CEO's vision for how CMEC should operate. So he had the managerial courage to let those folks go, capable people. But I can tell you that because they're capable people, they landed on their feet. But these are the kinds of things that they do when they look at the budget and look at every expense. They look at the contractors they hire, they reevaluate them every time. There are no passes when you get to the next year's budget. Everything gets reevaluated with rationale. And I'm liking that behavior. So it's been sustained over time and it needs to continue. 2.5 years ago, CMEC had an acting CEO, and everybody felt, the board and CMEC staff felt that CMEC needed to do some strategic planning. They needed to make some changes in business, but they were reluctant to do that with an acting CEO. They wanted the new CEO to be part of the process of developing the strategic plan, and they wanted them to have some ownership in it. Rather than handing them a plan and saying, do this, they wanted the value of the CEO. So they finished the strategic plan, and they had started on it last year. I think the strategic plan is paying dividends. I'm seeing them continue to go over the business hand over hand, reevaluate everything. One of the most important things they did was benchmarking. I think we've all been curious about how CMEC compares to other joint action agencies, is what you call them, people doing this kind of work. And it turns out that when CMEC compared themselves to the rest of the industry, jobs, roles, responsibilities are very similar. Salaries, compensation packages, they were on par with the benchmark, maybe just a little bit less than the benchmark compared to the industry. So that was welcome news to see that the CMEC is operating like any other joint action agency. They're not overpaid, they're not underpaid. Both of those things are important. I've been seeing policies change every board meeting, updates to modernize things, to reflect the changing environment. This Thursday we have a board meeting, and it's going to have a lot of information about financials and how some things are going to change with how money is managed at CMEC and invested. So the business is really getting a thorough going over as part of the strategic plan. And one of the things that you know about CMEC is with 26 people, they don't have bench strength. They don't have depth. You can't have 10 people all training to become, the person who buys electricity on the wholesale market. They're not going to have a lot of depth, but they're still working on succession planning. They're training people. They're doing the kinds of things that a well-run, responsible business does. So that's all welcome and good to see. My report would be incomplete if I didn't cover legal issues. But I got to tell you, it's in the background these days. 2.5 years ago, it was front and center agenda item every board meeting. And now it's occasionally we'll have a discussion about latest events, which is good because all of our time should be focused on getting the lowest reasonable cost electricity and reliable electricity to ratepayers. I think we all know that in the criminal trial, there were individuals found guilty, but we still have sentencing to go through. There could be appeals. It's a marathon, not a sprint, but it's not taking much time and attention from the board. Good news on the legal front. Last year I told you that the insurer that provided directors and officers insurance was refusing to honor the contract that CMEC thought they had, which would have paid for reasonable legal fees for the criminal trial. That ended up in court. CMEC prevailed. The insurer has been forced to begin paying reasonable legal fees, and significant money has been paid to CMEC already. It's good news for us ratepayers, getting that money back. I don't know what reasonable legal fees will translate to in terms of total compensation, but thus far it's 7 figures and continuing. So I'm optimistic about that. That's a good thing. Last year, I also talked about troubles we were having with the solar garden and trying to get Tesla to make their battery system perform. And that was in an acrimonious place, or more likely, we were getting the silent treatment from Tesla. Mr. Meisinger has a certain approach to these things that I think is paying dividends. He goes into it with it's not a fight, it's a problem to be solved. There needs to be a constructive solution that provides benefit to everybody. You were looking for mutual benefit and avoiding court, because court is risky. And given that as his guidelines, he and the staff have made progress on the solar garden. We're looking at changing the agreement so it will technically get it to work, and 2, make the agreement work financially for us as well. So we will get the dividends of that project. And the other one was the fuel cell project at the Groton Submarine Base. That was, the working relationship with the contractor and with the Navy was bad. But that's been largely reconciled too, and I credit Mr. Meisinger and the approach he has to these things. We're on the verge of having that system up and running, which will, again, there will be dividends for ratepayers like us. The subbase will get what they want, and we will derive benefit from that. So these are all things that are outcomes of having Mr. Meisinger set the tone as the CEO. The Legislative Affairs Committee was interesting last year. We had just gotten draft legislation from the state when I came and talked to you, and there was a lot in the draft legislation at state level that was concerning. We weren't sure if it was practical. The legislation tends to be written for the big players and not the little players. CMEC made comments. The state appears to be listening. There's been progress there. The proposed legislation is evolving over time. But the pace is hard to guess. We all know that at the federal level, the decarbonization initiatives are stalled, so we don't know what's coming there. And some of the goals were very aggressive, which would be concerning. And imagine this, let's say the state said, you have to reduce your carbon footprint 2% every year. You've got to buy 2% more green energy every year. Right now, you cannot go to an energy market and buy green energy. It's not a product that is sold. And in fact, there's no structure in the markets that would allow you to even find that. So the markets have to change and offer up the kind of products that you need. So that's just an example of how much work has to be done before we can really, the state can set goals and track us to those goals. There are all kinds of issues with that, but I'm happy to report that not only is the state paying attention to the small guys and the big guys, but the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is taking comments and paying attention to the developments. And there will be structural changes in the markets that well, too early to tell, but we're trying to avoid being penalized by all that, so we have to continue to pay attention. It's an interesting part of the business, but it's hard to tell what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. I don't have the crystal ball to say, I just know that I'm happy that CMEC continues to keep their eye on it closely and involve us in the discussions. So given all of this, I claim that CMEC is still keeping their commitment to deliver lowest reasonable cost electric power. I think they are sustaining the changes that have brought increased transparency and accountability to the board, at the board level. And I continue to see cost-conscious behavior in the staff and the CEO. And finally, given we had a CEO with a vested interest, they're clearly planning for the future, which is in our best interests. So all in all, I'd say it's a good report for CMEC this year. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your depth of knowledge and sharing it with us. Other questions?
Just a quick one.
Please, Alderman Singh.
So, I know like last year, inflation in US has gone up almost 7%, which is record-breaking. And it was, I think, the second highest was in 1980s. So how that has affected ratepayers or you guys or the whole process itself, to what extent? Because of course there was inflation, but there were a lot of perks from federal government given to businesses just to stabilize them as well. So does that affect it?
So the energy markets the whole industry is heavily regulated. It doesn't insulate it from inflation, but it's heavily regulated, which gives it some predictability. Market forces drive the prices more than anything else, and CMEC has a small group of people who watch the markets and time purchases to avoid high costs. They're looking for deals. So in a way, they're watching the markets and trying to buy power in advance to avoid crunches. Their purchasing strategy is largely what insulated us from a worse outcome this year. I think the inflation factor, I don't know that we call it inflation. When it comes to energy, availability of natural gas has been something that they've been watching very carefully. What happens in New England is to get natural gas to New England, it's either trucked in or there's just a single pipeline. We don't have a lot. So what happens in New England is we store natural gas in the summer to use it in the winter. And the storage rates for this past year were lower than expected, prompting ISO New England to warn everybody, hey, if we have a deep freeze for a long time, this could be a problem. We didn't get the deep freeze that they were worried about, and they may have overstated the concern. So the point is availability of natural gas and oil and diesel fuel end up affecting the price more than inflation. And the markets were affected by oil production being down and natural gas production being down. That gave the market some of the volatility that CMEC worked to avoid through strategic purchases. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. President Pro Tem.
David, I just wanted to thank you for the work that you do for us. And, just judging by your engagement and the report that you give, and I hear through the grapevine, so to speak, that you have completely invested yourself in serving us in this role, and I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other? Yes. Go ahead, Alderman Gould.
First, let me echo the sentiments of Mr. DeLucia. We made a great pick. We really did. An outstanding pick, and I'm proud to say I was on that committee. The $1.5 million reduction because of staffing cuts, do you see that not maybe happening in the future, more staff will be added because of their employee development plan and succession plan? Do you think the 26 number of personnel is too low for CMAC, and that they may at some point in time?
So Mr. Meisinger has let us know that he has one position unfilled. He intends to fill it. Other than that, there are no plans to grow back to 30 or 35. As far as I know, their succession planning strategy does not require them to add staff, but we haven't really talked in detail. I only know that he intends to hire at least one more person, maybe two, depending on projects and other variables. So, will we get do we get $1 million out of the non-fuel operating costs every year? I doubt it. That's hard to sustain given the total is, somewhere around 10 million to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get too low.
Right.
So-
No, I'm not saying that we should be reducing the staff. I was just wondering if they're working on employee development and this succession plan, that may increase the staff back to the 30 number, 33 number. But
Right,
you're
it's a
saying that
standard
maybe not.
strategy to have more people, yes. But they have not advertised that they're doing that. In fact, the specific comment from Mr. Meisinger was a 1, maybe 2.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question, comment? Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Report from the Reappointment Committee regarding several reappointments and appointments.
Thank you. A motion to receive. Alderman Singh, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
City Manager's report.
Yes, thank you. This is the city manager's report for February 22nd, 2022. Meetings attended were the state representatives and legislators, Southeastern Council of Governments, Southeastern Transit, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities Board meeting, NPU's City Coordination meeting, Region 4 Emergency Support, FEMA, bond conference and signing, and the second goal-setting session. The city completed the sale of $145 million general obligation bonds. The process began over a year ago and was supported and approved unanimously by the city, by the members of the city's Personnel and Pension Board, Board of Education, Public Utilities Commission, and City Council. Excuse me. It was then approved by a 2-to-1 margin by the voters in November of 2021. After the approval by the voters, the plan was reviewed by the state of Connecticut's Office of Policy and Management and Treasury prior to the city being able to move forward with the transaction. The state finished this process on January 27, 2022. Standard & Poor's gave Norwich a stable outlook for existing general application debt and AA long-term rating. The syndicate of underwriters working on the city's POB sale garnered a massive amount of interest in the bonds, with investors' orders over 4 times the number of bonds available. This competition for the bonds enabled the city to get a very competitive total interest cost of 3.4%, despite the recent surge in interest rates. By issuing the POBs, the city, including the Board of Education and Department of Utilities, will pay a total of $13.7 million in fiscal year 22-23 in pension reserve fund and POP debt, rather than $16.7 million in pension fund contributions if the city had not issued POBs. Paul DeSellis from Decision Point LLC met with the City Council City staff and NCDC via Zoom on February 5th and 10th for an update to the council goals. He's in the process of preparing the items discussed and will present to the council in March. The Community Development Office has received 18 applications in the amount of $1,505,157.80 for program year 48 and anticipates $876,317 in federal funding. Deliberations will be held in the beginning of March. The city's emergency management department has a limited supply of COVID test kits and masks available for vulnerable populations. Please call 860-886-1534 for more information. The Rose City Senior Center has partnered with AARP again this year to provide income tax preparation and scheduled over 500 appointments for our seniors. Thank you again to artist Mark Penanode for loaning the city its painting of City Hall. It has been posted on the city's Facebook page. And that completes my report for this evening. I will ask if you have questions to please speak into the microphone. I had a difficult time hearing some of the council discussions.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the report, and I would like to repeat what you said about the $3 million savings going into the next budget cycle. I think that's an outstanding outcome after the receiving approval of the voters, the state, and everything else. That's just a great outcome. And thank you to you and Josh and all those who participate and make that possible, and to the voters. Are there questions of the city manager? President Pro Tem, please. Alderman DeLucia.
I don't have a question for the city manager, but I did just get notified that the video stream dropped.
Thank you for telling us.
And I'll yield the floor.
Blame it on the brain.
What's that?
Blame it on.
Okay. Hopefully the audio is still available, or would that not be the case if the stream is out? For those on computer, it wouldn't be, would it?
Yeah, the stream dropped is all I got.
Okay, we're going to take a couple-minute recess, see if we can get that restored. Thank you.
He said TV.
He said streaming.
Oh, streaming on Facebook? The live stream?
Yeah.
The live stream, yeah.
Yep.
So then that's not this.
That's not on our end then.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, that may not be us, it may be
Yep.
right, the rain.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Did that.
Yep. Okay, the problem this time is with live streaming. That's no technical issue here within this building or at our hands. So we apologize for those who are live streaming the meeting, but we're going to move forward at this time. Alderman Singh, you had a question of the city manager.
Thank you. Hey, John, can you hear me now? John?
Yes?
Okay. Well, congratulations to everyone, including all the voters and everyone who participated in this bond obligation thing. My only quick question is the rate of interest, that 3.4%, is it fixed? Is it gonna go with the market, or was it just for last year or just for this year? I mean, because that's a very good rate, like even lower than what SBA is offering, you know, other businesses as well. So if there is any way to lock this, that'll be great.
John, would you like to comment, please?
I really couldn't hear part of it, Mayor. I can hear you fine, but I could not hear some of the question from
Okay, we can
Counsel.
repeat it, John.
Let's try it again. So I was like, it's a very good thing that we all worked on this and we were able to save millions of dollars to our city. My question is the 3.4%, the interest cost that we are talking here, are those rates fixed or they're just gonna go with the market? Or is it fixed for certain years? Because that's a pretty good rate, that we are getting, even lower than the SBA is offering to businesses. So,
The rates are fixed for the 25 years of the bond, so the 3.4% number is an aggregate. The bonds mature every 6 months, and there's different maturity levels. The short bonds are in the area of 1% interest, and the longest bonds, the 25-year bonds, are around 4%. So the aggregate is 3.4, but that number is something that will be stable for the life of the bonds.
okay. So it's like an average that they took.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions of the city manager? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
At this time, I declare citizen comment on resolutions to be open. If you wish to comment on the resolutions on our agenda this evening, please call 860-215-8140. When prompted, dial the conference ID number of 403-8191 and then the pound key. For the edification of listeners or viewers, we have resolutions on appointment to Uncas Health, Mohegan Park Improvement Advisory Committee, reappointment to the Norwich Ice Authority, Southeastern Connecticut Water Authority, Historic District Commission, Recreation Advisory Board, Redevelopment Agency, and then there's a resolution relative to a settlement agreement regarding the opioid crisis with Collegium Pharmaceuticals. Those are the items on our agenda this evening. The lines are open. Again, the number is 860-215-8140. When prompted, conference ID 403-8191, pound key.
Good evening, Joanne Philbrick, Norwich Town. I'd like to start by saying I'm calling in regards to the reappointments. I don't have any issues with them per se, but I will use this as a segue into the fact that the last 2 years have been extremely difficult for everyone, more so for some than for others. But one thing it has taught us is that we probably don't need all the boards and commissions that we have in the city of Norwich. The proof in the pudding would be the fact that most of them have not met for almost 2 years. So I would ask you to seriously look into reevaluating the need for these boards and commissions. In addition, the public process has been compromised, to say the least. Many people, in my age group especially, do not have access to nor how to use smartphones, Zoom conferencing, and all other those modes of technology. And by virtue of that fact alone, we are eliminated from the public process. So I personally am looking forward to the day, hopefully in the very, very near future, when people are able to come in and occupy and participate in the city building that is owned by the taxpayers and the citizens of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, if you'd like to call in on the agenda items this evening, the number is 860-215-8140. When prompted, conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, the number to call in is at 860-215-8140. When prompted, conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, the number to call in on resolutions on this agenda this evening is 860-215-8140. When prompted, the conference ID of 403-8191 and the pound key. At this time, seeing there are no additional callers, I would then declare citizen comment on resolutions to be closed. And thank you for calling.
New business resolutions. Number 1, relative to reappointments and appointments of regular members to the Uncas Health District.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask for a motion to bring this to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Yes. Alderwoman Gould, please.
Thank you. I would just like to thank Mr. Giacaruso and Ms. Malucci for their interest in continuing to serve on this board, and thank Dr. Gonzalez and Ms. Aubin for joining this board, because as everyone knows, while all of our boards and commissions in the city are important, nobody's done more work recently than the members of the Uncas Health District. And so I thank them for their willingness to serve on this committee very much.
Thank you very much for those comments. That's absolutely true. Is there further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Resolution is adopted.
Number 2, relative to reappointments and appointments of regular members to the Mohegan Park Improvement and Development Advisory Committee.
Motion, please, to bring this to the floor. Alderman Singh, second Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? No discussion for members of the viewing and listening public. These people are being reappointed as regular members of MOPEEP. That is Rebecca Malucci and Judith Magnano. And appointed as regular members of MOPEEP as Marianne Nicholas and Robert Harris. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes. The resolution is adopted, 7-0. Thank you.
Number 3, relative to a reappointment of a regular member to the Norwich Ice Arena Authority.
Motion by Alderman Wilson, second by Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Again, for members of viewing and listening public, the person being reappointed as a regular member is Mark Siscuso. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes. The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Number 4, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Southeastern Connecticut Water Authority.
Motion, please bring this to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould?
I want to thank Chris Siri for asking to be appointed to this committee. We haven't had a member representing Norwich on the Southeastern Connecticut Water Authority for quite some time. He has the perfect background for it. And, you know, again, we appreciate his willingness to be appointed to this committee.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Relative to an appointment of an alternate member to the Historic District Commission.
Motion, please bring this floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderman Berto. Is there discussion? For members of the viewing and listening public, the person being appointed as an alternate member to the Historic District Commission is Peter Jacob Stahl. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Number 6, relative to an appointment of a regular member to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Motion, please bring it to the floor. Alderman Singh, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Grant Neuendorf.
I would just like to say some kind words about Jeff Brown. He's an amazing citizen who's a great member of our community. He has a real love for athletics, teaching physical education at one of the local high schools, as well as coaching basketball. He will be a great addition to the Rec Advisory Board, and I am looking forward to working with him.
Thank you, sir. Further comment? Alderman Wilson.
I'd like to echo those sentiments. Jeffrey Brown has been an exemplary coach and member of this community, helping volunteer, run camps, coach, and you know, someone who knows the craft of recreation and sports well. Will be a great added addition to some of the members that we have recently lost. And I'm excited for you know, someone new to step in and give some fresh ideas on recreation. So I look forward to working with him as well.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Resolution is adopted 7-0.
Number 7, relative to a reappointment of regular member to the Redevelopment Agency.
Motion, please. Alderman Singh, second by Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Again, for the listeners and viewers, the person being appointed as a regular member of RDA is Mark Kulos. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
Relative to number 8, relative to a settlement agreement regarding the opioid crisis, with Collegium Pharmaceutical.
Motion, bring it to the floor, please. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Again, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. Resolution is adopted 7-0.
New business ordinance. An ordinance amending Chapter 9 definitions, Section 9.2, define terms of the zoning regulations to add manufacturing-related terms including manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, food manufacturing, precision manufacturing, research and development, and research laboratories.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask for a motion, please, to raise this for public hearing scheduled to be on April 4th. We're going to waive the full reading of that of Schedule A, and we're going to refer the following proposed ordinance to the following towns: Preston, Lisbon, Bosworth, Montville, Franklin, and Sprague, as well as the Commission on the City Plan, the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, the Southeastern Council of Governments, and the following water companies: NPU and Montville WPCA. Is there such a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by the President Pro Tem, Alderman DeLucia. Okay. Yes,
What time?
6:30 PM, which is different. Thank you. Yep. This will begin an hour before the regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council. That is our intent. That's also the night the city manager presents his budget. So the motion was made by Alderman Singh, the second, I'm sorry, President Pro Tem DeLucia, seconded by Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And your question, Alderman Wilson.
What was the other town? You said Lisbon, Montville?
It's Preston, Lisbon, Bosworth, Montville, Franklin, and Sprague.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And Alderman Singh?
I thought time was 6 o'clock, if you, instead of 6:30.
6:30.
It was 6:30?
Is our intent is 6:30.
Okay, thank you.
And our intent is to continue the public hearing held at that time into the full meeting of the council,
Okay,
and then take action on the second reading, where we can actually vote on it, but we'll also entertain any further comment that may arrive at that time who couldn't be there at 6:30 for that
Thank
first
you.
hour. Thank
Okay.
you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
The ordinance proposed for public hearing passes 7-0. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Gould. Is there a second? Alderwoman Berto. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all this evening. Thank you, anyone who was listening, watching. We apologize for any technical issues.